Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the SFI Biweekly Briefing on Tuesdays at 2. I'm Sarah Streyder. I'm the SFI's Executive Director, and today I am joined by Jordan Teague. Jordan, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan. I am the proud partner of a military service member who's stationed at the Pentagon. And as an aside, can I just say I'm so grateful for SFI, getting connected, and I'm still relatively new. So excited to be here. I'm the interim director for policy analysis and coalition building at Bread for the World, which is a nonprofit stationed here in DC. Not stationed. I'm already in the military talk. It's located here in DC that does anti-hunger policy and advocacy. And I'm also a board member of a local nonprofit called Homes Not Borders that helps in the refugee resettlement process.
Yes, we are big Jordan fans. She's an awesome volunteer, and specifically experience with Homes Not Borders is one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, because we're going to be touching on that. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Today's news roundup, we're just going to be focusing on two headlines today because we've got a lot of action items piled at the end, and we wanted to save time. So for today's headlines, we've got an update on Afghan resettlement efforts that Jordan is going to share some of her personal expertise with. And then we're going to be talking about a new important law that touches everything from arms sales to natural disasters. How's that for a hook? All right, item number one, an update on Afghan resettlement. So, as we all know, hundreds of thousands of refugees were evacuated from Afghanistan over this last summer, and many of them came here to the United States. For the last 2 months, a number of U.S. military bases have been temporarily housing some of those evacuees, including some of the bases here in Virginia, where my family is stationed. Last week, we got an update from the White House, who has been spearheading most of these resettlement efforts, sharing that the phase of base housing for evacuees is coming to an end. So a lot of folks came over, they were temporarily housed, and once they got through, I think the primary timeline effector was a vaccine regimen. So once folks were ready, we're now reaching that point where this week and beyond, a wave of evacuees are going to be starting to move off base and into their local communities. It started a little bit before then, but now is where the numbers are really going to kick in. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means that there has never been a better time to help support our new Afghan neighbors. I know that so many of our SFI members used the resources posts that we posted back in August to find opportunities for volunteering and donations, and we are so grateful for the activity of our community in this effort. And we're here to just say that the need for help has not gone away. In fact, for a lot of the local resettlement agencies that we're trying to support, now is one of their biggest moments of need. So, Jordan, you've been involved in some local refugee resettlement work. And so we were hoping you could briefly share, what has it been like for you? And what advice would you give to folks who are considering joining?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So as I mentioned, I'm a board member with a local nonprofit here in the DC area called Homes Not Borders. Really quickly, what Homes Not Borders does is kind of works on the front end of getting empty apartments that families will be coming into, turning those into warm and welcoming homes, so that families, once they are finally in their permanent housing, that they feel welcomed and that they have all they need to really start their life here in the United States. So previous years, before this summer, Homes Not Borders would set up maybe 2 homes per week. In the last 2 months, sometimes we've been doing 2 homes per day. So, we did have a lull with the period of time that we were waiting for the refugees on bases to get those vaccines that you mentioned. But now things are definitely picking up. We have a lot of families coming in, even in our DC area, and we know we're only one area that's welcoming these families. And we really are appreciative, and we think it's laudable that our government has welcomed these families, but the system is just overwhelmed. Given, years of underinvestment, we're rebuilding that refugee system. And so the larger, resettlement agencies who typically handle this type of work are needing to restaff and build up their reserves. And so there's a gap, in the support that our government and that these agencies have been able to provide. So local nonprofits like Homes Not Borders have been stepping in to fill that gap. Some of the gaps that we've seen are, housing, finding housing, providing those home furnishings. That's more on the front end. And then, once families are resettled, the career mentoring and employment support and English help. We've seen a ton of local nonprofits like H&B and others step in to provide these services, many of whom were already doing this work and who have been able to mobilize and scale up in response to this large influx of families from Afghanistan. I will say, just on a personal note, over the last couple of months, it's been pretty hard to see what's happening in Afghanistan, and to see just the vast amount of need that we've seen. But it's also been really encouraging to see the response that ordinary people like you and me and others have really stepped in to fill. Homes Not Borders has now over 500 volunteers on our list. We have seen a huge surge of donations, both monetary and financially. So folks like the folks listening to this call have been so generous. And so that's been so encouraging. But there, is continuing to be a need, even though Afghanistan may not be in the headlines anymore. So there's lots of places to plug in. Homes Not Borders, like I said, it works on the front end, and there are other NGOs or organizations that work on longer term things. I'm actually part of, through my church in the local DC area, what we call family friends. And so we basically come alongside a family and just get to be friends with them and help them when they need, but also just get to know them. So there's lots of places to plug in. Some opportunities that we see moving forward are, volunteering, using your time and being physically somewhere. It could be short term, like, H&B, come in, set up an apartment, and you're done for the day, or long term, like coming alongside families that I was just mentioning. Always donate, either money, or I think a lot of organizations have Amazon wish lists now, so that's an easy way. And then finally, advocate for these families coming in to have the benefits that they need to get their life in order and set up in the U.S., and then also ongoing for this refugee system, so that we don't face a situation like this again, that we're ready in the future to accept folks who need to come into our country.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that overview. And can I just also plug real quick? I know we'll talk a little more at the end, but when I was in Nebraska, I got involved with a local group where we did it as a group. We did it as a community. We got together and we put together an apartment. And I think it's way more fun to do it with people your friends, your neighbors, than to go. I mean, going it alone is fine. Please don't let this be an excuse not to do anything. But if you can get a friend to join in, it's way more fun, and it kind of spreads out the work as well. So that's a quick plug for that strategy. If you're interested in learning more, obviously Jordan mentioned Homes Not Borders, which is a great NGO, and there are tons others, and some that may be closer to you geographically. So the best centralized hub that we found is welcome.us. This is the formal hub that has a lot of input from both government and NGOs, and you can find lots of opportunities, volunteering, donating, and different types of tasks that you can help with. So that's the best resource we can offer. All right, item number 2. Jordan, want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So 2 weeks ago, a bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced a bill called the National Security Reforms and Accountability Act in the U.S. House of Representatives. This bill aims to make far-sweeping changes to how our country does big things like going to war or mobilizing toward natural disasters. 2 really different things, but also very important. Over time, Congress has passed a lot of laws that have, when taken together, given up a lot of its authority over these issues to the president. As it stands right now, the president could take our military into a long-standing conflict overseas, or send a ton of National Guard troops across the country for an emergency, all by him or herself. No congressional approval or oversight would be required. So it's not hard to imagine how that can be pretty dangerous. What this bill does, that we're talking about now, is it basically requires Congress to be involved in those big and long-lasting decisions. The president can act quickly, but in order to keep up longer running campaigns, Congress would need to approve.
And as military families, we really celebrate this legislation because those decisions over war especially, but in addition to the National Guard mobilization, I mean, those are decisions that could turn our families' lives completely topsy-turvy. And we want to make sure, therefore, that those decisions are deliberative, transparent, and of course, constitutional, which this bill helps fix.
Yeah, exactly. And like I mentioned, this bill has been introduced in the U.S. House. A similar version was introduced in the U.S. Senate back in July. So that means that bipartisan support exists in both chambers. Super important and not all that common these days. So we will keep members updated on whether and when these bills move forward.
Awesome. All right, like I said, we kept it brief on the news front because we wanted to be able to focus on the action items at the end. We leave every briefing with action items, and today we have 3 for you, so hang in there. Number 1, like we've talked about earlier, please find ways as possible to plug into resettlement support efforts because those are in full swing. I really encourage folks to check out welcome.us, and you can find lots of options. So for example, maybe you can give people rides to and from the airport or to appointments that they might have. Maybe you know of a local business who could really use some help right now, and you can possibly be the linchpin that connects them to being able to hire someone who's looking to find local work. There are lots of different options that play to different strengths and experiences that I think are broadly represented by our community. And I think it's a really awesome way to show that as military families, you know, we really care about these folks, especially the folks who fought alongside our loved ones for the last 20 years. This is us kind of taking up the baton and carrying out our version of the mission. So please check out those resources. And if at any point you have any questions or you're just looking for some advice, reach out to us and chances are someone on our team could be able to help you with that.
Second action item, in case you missed it, SFI launched a Patreon last week. Really exciting. In case you don't know, Patreon is a platform where SFI will be storing all of our civic engagement training materials. So if you want access to videos and blog posts about registering your family members to vote or effectively advocating to your member of Congress or how to build your resume with volunteer work, make sure that you subscribe today. It's also a really great way for members to support the work of SFI.
Thanks, Jordan. And final action item. So right now we are 1 month away from Veterans Day 2021. And leading up to that holiday, we're really encouraging SFI members to consider writing a letter to their local editor about an issue that you care about. Letters to the editor are really short. They're only a couple paragraphs, so they're easy to type into your notes app while you're dropping your kid off at the carpool. But they can be really persuasive to your local neighbors who are more likely to listen to, say, their neighbor down the street than a general mainstream pundit on the TV. So we have a whole post on our website that explains why letters to the editor are so important and a step-by-step guide for how to write them and how to submit them. Like I said, they're a really easy lift, but they have this big potential to have impact. And Veterans Day coming up in a month is a good opportunity to more likely get published on an issue and be able to talk about something you care about and be heard. So really strongly recommend that folks give that a chance. All right, well, that wraps it up for us today. Thank you, Jordan, for helping us with today's briefing. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Tune in back in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing more of a deep dive on that law that Jordan was talking about, National Security Powers Act. So get all of those questions primed. We'll be sure to fill you in on that. Until then, have a good and safe day. Bye.